Hey, this is the World Advice Channel 2. What I want to talk about today is the topic of the problem with men. So this video is a close-up video to the video I released yesterday where I talked about the problem with women. And for this video, I'll talk about the problem with men when it comes to how they do things in relationships. Okay, as I said, I'm being unbiased with this topic, which of course relates to gender wars because I realize both sides do stupid shit that definitely causes a lot of the problems that has leading to the gender wars, which is why men and women are not getting along nowadays. So for this video, I'm going to give constructive criticism about men so men can change. So of course we can end the gender wars, just like I expect women to change as well. Okay, so now I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the problem with men, there's a few problems with men. But one of the biggest problems with men, I suppose, when it comes to relationships is that they spoil women. And that's the first point I want to get across. Men tend to spoil women. They tend to create a culture where not only do they tend to focus primarily on women who are attractive, instead of focusing on not only is she attractive, does she at least have any qualities, which is extremely important as well. They don't focus on that, they just focus on how good she looks. But aside from that, they just focus on just spoiling a woman when they date them. Okay, because a lot of men I notice tend to spoil women very much when they date them. Okay, because they just let them, they just go out of their way to just do things for them. They're always giving them, buying an excessive amount of things and all this type of stuff. Let them get away with shit, even willing to do things for them. Like, oh, I looked at her the wrong way. Okay, I'm gonna punch this random guy I never met in my life because he apparently disrespected my girl. Just because he apparently, according to her, looked at him the wrong way or something like that, which is so goddamn stupid, and all that type of shit, which is the big reason why men and women are not getting along, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of men have bad experiences with women who claim that, some apparently, they did something disrespectful to her, which made this guy want to punch him in the face or something. In other words, her boyfriend want to punch him in the face. And that's why a lot of people hate women so much. That's a big contributing reason why. And the truth of the matter is, back to what I'm trying to say, is that so many men have just, spoiled women. Whether it's that or even turning on their own friends, for that matter, just because, apparently maybe that friend might have said something bad about his girlfriend, which he might have not necessarily intended it to be shade. He was just trying to give constructive criticism about his girlfriend because he noticed that his friend, his male best friend even sometimes, has a lot of issues with his girlfriend, so he's trying to give some fucking advice, but his best friend just ends up pushing him against the wall, saying, "Don't you see a word about my girlfriend again?" Which is so dumb. And that's the truth of the matter, though. And that's one of the biggest problems men have in relationships, that they spoil women, which is a result of spoiling women by making them think they can get away with anything. It creates a situation where a lot of these women do not have a very good personality because they're so used to getting what they want that when they don't get what they want, they lash out and even have a very nasty reaction. Just like when you're a kid, or most kids for that matter, let's keep it real. Most kids lash out when they don't get what they want. Now imagine living in a world where maybe those parents never disciplined those kids for not getting what they want. Can you imagine if we live in a society where literally parents didn't punish their kids, and not even just that, but more specifically, they always give the kids what they want. Could you imagine how terrible those kids would be when they grow up? And when they grow up and become actual people, the majority of people in the population would be terrible people. Okay, let's keep it real. Most of us, when we were kids, when we didn't get what we want, we lashed out, we acted very nasty. So the truth of the matter is that if you obviously act that, if you obviously are used to that, which, let's keep it real, the majority of us, of everyone, regardless of gender, would have ended up like that if they were not told that they can't always get what they want. So when it comes to women who make up half the population, they're always used to getting what they want. slightly above average attractiveness in school. We praise them. We always say good things about them, and all that stuff, which just makes them likely to just have really bad personalities instead of actually, developing a good personality and realizing, I have to actually be a good person. I can't always, always get what I want. I have to sometimes be nice to people. I actually have to have an interest in them looking good. But a lot of women don't know that. Specifically, very beautiful women don't know that because they're so used to men just letting them get whatever the fuck they want, without, actually having to develop a personality or anything for that matter. So that's the first problem with men when it comes to what's causing these shit wars is that we tend to spoil women, okay? Not me specifically. I would never be stupid enough to do this shit, but the majority of men, speaking on a collective level, do spoil women, okay? So that's the first problem. Now, for the second problem, when it comes to the issue with men, to be quite blunt and honest with you, that also needs to be mentioned, of course, which I hinted at a little bit for my first point, is that a lot of men, to be quite blunt and honest with you, absolutely do not give are not good at receiving criticism of their girlfriend, which is another big issue, okay? Which in other words, to sum up what I'm trying to say is that they don't support each other. They don't let other men give, like their friends, give constructive criticism of the relationship, because this is another big one when it comes to the problem with men in relationships, is that they tend to always have the worst things happen to them, okay? Because a lot of times, they just don't really seem to understand, that they can get that it's okay for their friends to maybe give them dating advice or give them advice, like, okay, is this woman you want to date or something? Because I notice whenever you talk to her, and so on and so forth, she always talks over you. It comes off as rude and this and that, and it's not even like you're talking shit about her, you're just simply talking about, like, okay, she doesn't seem like she's a very nice person. But the thing about the boy culture, or guy culture, whatever you like to say, is that a lot of men, even if you're giving, trying to give them advice, about, like, is this woman you want to be dating, will just simply say, do you want to get punched in the face, which is so fucking stupid. But that's how a lot of men act. So as a result, a lot of men end up, acting this way, and as a result, they get in really shitty relationships that sometimes end some up not only being extremely heartbroken, but extremely fucked over, and so on and so forth. They even become bitter and very cold as a result of it. But in the end of the day, if you have a culture where people, who are close to you, specifically people who care about you, are not willing to give you advice because they feel like if you give them advice on your relationship, like, okay, is this really someone you want to be dating? You're gonna punch them in the fucking face. Then what the fuck do you think is gonna happen? It's a well-known fact among guys that we, unlike women, do not do not give each other advice, on their relationships, even when, you're speaking on your male friend's behalf, because a lot of times from what I've heard, it leads to fights, even when a guy might speak about his girlfriend, and and his friend says, yo, I'm on your side, forget about what your girlfriend says. You know how many times a lot of guys who have defended their friend have gotten beaten up by the other male friend just because gave they spoke on their defense against their girlfriend a lot. So what do you think is going to happen? So as a result of that, that's why a lot of guys get in shitty relationships, and they end up bitter and hateful and resentful, and they end up sometimes, in some cases, not even some cases, a lot of cases, probably ending up becoming red pill people, when it's a case of it's kind of your own fault, dude, for why, you know a lot of men have issues with women in relationships, okay? And that's the truth of the matter. So to sum up my video, this is the problem with men when it comes to how men act in relationships. Not only do they spoil women, they don't they're not willing to receive criticism about their relationship, okay? And if they do, they're just willing to punch you in the face, which is so goddamn stupid. So, in short, to answer your question with absolute certainty, it's the problem with men, just like I talked about the problem with women, okay? And just to end this off for good, this video, this is the issue men have, and if we as men on a collective level can confront this issue, we can help end the gender wars, okay? You know, because there's issues men have that men need to stop doing, just like there's issues women need to stop doing, okay? So we can start getting along again, especially in relationships, and as a result end the gender wars for good. And that's off the saying, so we put them out. So bye.